In May of 2015, an Amtrak train en route from Washington, D.C. to New York City derailed and wrecked outside of Philadelphia. 200 people were injured and 8 people were killed. And there was an enormous damage to the train, as you can imagine. The train hit a 50-mile-an-hour curve in the track, doing 100 miles an hour. You can imagine there were many investigations to the cause of the accident after that by many different agencies. The National Transportation for Safety determined in the next year in a report, they reported that the probable cause of the accident was loss of situational awareness. Loss of situational awareness. That phrase really struck me as something that happens to all of us, and how important it is to develop for our own practice, to say nothing of our life, or let's say it's equally important in both aspects of life, our daily life and our practice, to have a present moment awareness, a mindfulness, a presence of mind. And all three of those ways of expressing the same thing are common throughout the spiritual traditions of any kind, and also a key to our fulfillment in life. The engineer in question in the accident was well trained, experienced. He was not tired. He was not texting. He was not talking on the phone. He was not scrolling on his smartphone. He was not intoxicated. He was not drugged. He was merely distracted. He had loss of situational awareness. So the consequences of that distracted mind can be major, as in that case, or for us, it may just be the difficulty of staying present with the practice, whether that's a recitation practice, a meditation practice, or asana practice, something we are working on in the outer world with a project or a skill that we're trying to develop, that is also continually derailed by uninvited thought patterns or uninvited distractions. So we are, and those can be both from an inner rising of unrest of some kind, unresolved ideas or thoughts or questions or emotions or feelings or patterns that just manifest without being called forward, or it can be something distracting in the world around us. So all of those things tend to derail our effectiveness in whatever we're concentrating on in the world, in terms of our work projects or daily tasks. But they also, of course, are exactly what pull us away from deepening our meditation practice, for example. So it may be helpful to give a little more depth or thinking around what presence of mind actually means, and then what we might do to start cultivating it, because I think we can all agree that it's an important quality of training the mind. This is how we attenuate the roaming tendencies of mind that are described in Pandit Rajmani's textbook on and translations and commentary on the Yoga Sutra, the roaming tendencies of mind, the vrittis. And distraction is one of those 5 categories of mental cognitions or mental activity that are various descriptions of various states, and distraction is one of them, and not the desirable one necessarily. We want instead to be one-pointed, at least one-pointed on whatever it is we've decided to turn our attention to. So to cultivate this kind of strength of mind is really a key in our success in fulfillment in life as well as in practice. First of all, presence of mind and present moment awareness does not mean that we are going to disregard the past and refuse to think or skip over anything from the past. And it doesn't mean that we don't consider the future. It means that when we are planning for the future or indulging flights of fancy for the fun of it, that we've done so consciously with intention, and that it's appropriate for the situation. So there's not a loss of situational awareness. There is just, in the present moment, we happen to be thinking about the future, or we're thinking about the past, which is an important part of our learning experiences in life. Digesting or understanding the past, or taking knowledge of what we have learned from the past into the present situation. So it's more about not being hijacked by the unintended distractions, by the unintended arising of thought patterns that are related to the past or the future, or our own inner unrest of some kind. Or, as the case may be, something from outside that doesn't really need our attention. So that's perhaps a more comprehensive definition of what we're talking about here, presence of mind. It's an expanded sense of mind where both the past and the present and the outer cognitions, and then here's the important part also, our inner awareness of our own inner states is part of that as well. And what I'm suggesting is that part of our training to develop this habit of presence of mind is about also being connected to our own inner experience in the moment. There's a word for that in neurological and physiological circles, interoception. It means being aware of inner states of being, things like hunger or discomfort. It's the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system talking to the brain. So it also gives us knowledge about our emotional states, or that sort of triggering of unconscious responses to situations outside of us. If we're able to be aware of those inner characteristics or the inner environment, as well as our outer environment, then we are able to make appropriate decisions about what our situation or what our response should be, or what the opportunities are in that moment in the situation. So at the moment that this train wreck occurred, the engineer was not recognizing, he was not aware of what his eyes were seeing. He knew the route, he'd been there before, but he was distracted, not realizing or what he wasn't able to process the information his nervous system was giving him. And that's often the case for us. We develop a habit of overriding the signal that we've eaten enough, or the signal that we're uncomfortable, or the signal that we are hungry, or the signal that we're disturbed about something. So if it's not congruent with what's the story we're telling ourselves about the situation of ours or ourself, then we tend to disregard the information. So if we think we should eat everything on our plate, we may disregard the signal that we are full. If we think we are the smartest person in the room, we may ignore the information coming in that might suggest to us that that's not the case. So we tend to override the inner intelligence of the body, as well as the capacity to interpret those signals, if we're not paying attention. And one of the things that our yoga practice does for us, particularly our asana practice, but also any of the inner focusing and the breath awareness kind of practices, is it teaches us to recognize these inner signals from our nervous system about how our physiologically or how the body and that aspect of the mind that we are not consciously aware of, how it might be responding. And then when we have that um, interoceptive awareness, we are able to begin to regulate the emotional responses we have to those inner things that are arising. So without this kind of recognition that I'm angry, or the recognition that I'm hungry, the recognition that I'm feeling left out, the recognition that I'm satisfied, we're unable to appropriately adjust our behavior. And we either lash out in anger, or we carry the negative load of those toxic emotions with us. And that, of course, is bad for our health, but it also means the mind is not clear. Our discrimination is compromised. Our decision making is compromised. So, that inner attention to a moment by moment presence in the physical body is not something that we have to belabor or worry about or chew on or be overly attentive to, but to be fully present and recognizing that inner self adds a dimension to our present moment awareness that enriches our life, as well as helping us make um, adjustments to when we understand that our emotional responses are unnecessary or unhelpful or need to be somehow mitigated. So we're able to self regulate. And of course, that's huge in every aspect of life. And it also means that we are able to have a clear mind and the capacity to be comfortably still as we move forward with our increased awareness in our meditative practices. The other thing that's relevant to this sense of being present moment awareness and presence of mind is realizing that our capacity for joy and enjoyment is related to the quality of attention that we bring. So it's not so much the external event or situation as it is the invocation, the evocation that has with our inner states. So if we're disturbed or distracted, we don't notice how beautiful the garden is, or how beautiful the storm or the trees or anything around us actually. If we are clear and fully present, we notice, and the amount of detail or the quality of attention we bring to something is directly correlated with the amount of joy and information and nourishment that it gives us. So, quality of life, the fulfillment of our duties and responsibilities and the things that we would like to accomplish in life, and the quality of our inner presence of mind and spiritual growth are all dependent on this capacity to be sustain or develop and a more robust presence of mind. And one of the good ways of doing that is by working with our asana practice, and then also just on a daily basis at any moment, consider bringing your attention to the touch of the breath in the nose. Because that also brings us to a presence, or reminds us of our inner being, or the home of the mind and the complete mind in the body. So that it's not just our conscious thinking mind, which is subject to these distracted, disturbed states of and running wildly, roaming about out in the weeds, but that inner sense of experiential self, our experiential self. And if we can bring our experiential self and our thinking self together, then we have a much bigger present to be in, and a much greater success and enjoyment in life. The second thing the second practice that we can work with that helps us staying and maintaining that presence of mind is to have intention. So the stronger our intention is, the less likely we will be hijacked by distractions. And if our intention is um, constantly with us, then we begin to negotiate through the distractions or through tasks or through uh, different scenarios with that intention being a kind of a guideline. Um, when you're skiing down the mountain, you have chosen a route. You've got something in your mind about where you're going next and how you're going to get there. It means you have to be totally present to be able to ski in the moment, but you also have a guide. And so when you have an intention, you're able to stay present with what you're keeping your energies collected in a direction. So the engineer had the intention to take the train from Washington to New York City. And inside of that intention, he had a smaller intention, which was to regulate the speed of the train according to the terrain and according to the condition of the track and so on. So holding both of those intentions would have enabled him to have stayed present. But when he lost the intention to be aware of staying with the process of being on the train and the track in this landscape at this place, that's when the mistake was made. So for us, it's the same thing. We have the intention in our meditation practice, say, to recite the Sri Sukta. And halfway through, we are distracted by some other thought or thinking, or we lose we lose our place. We go off track. So when the intention is very strong, we stay present. And sometimes the mind is just tired and there isn't quite enough energy to stay present with anything that we're thinking, if it's complicated or requires a lot of energy. So there's also that aspect of staying well nourished and strong in our physical body and well rested. But that quality of attention can make all the difference for us to have the hold together a focus. And that's why in the morning it's important to have set an intention for yourself. It doesn't mean that we want to be rigid about it, but it's rather to prioritize so that we have some sense. And here's the other thing about intention. Choosing what it is we are planning to do or what we want empowers that intention so that it's a choice that we've made, even if it turns out not to be the right one or something that we actually like. Our intention is much stronger when we've made that choice. So consciously choosing what we know we should do and what we want to do, or what we know is the right thing to do, will help us to set that intention and to stay present. The engineer faced a number of criminal charges. Several times, the judge threw out the case, dismissed it, saying there was no criminal intent. Several times reinstated. Finally, it went to trial, and the jury, just a few years ago, in 2022, 7 years after the accident, a jury declared or that he was innocent of all charges and that it was an accident, dismissed all the charges. So the sad thing about that story is not only the loss of life, but the fact that this was a young man who had all his life wanted nothing more than to drive a train and be an engineer. And just a momentary loss of situational awareness derailed his life. So let us develop situational awareness and presence of mind and enjoy and find a very fulfilling life as well as our fulfilling meditation practice.